You beat the live stream, so. According to that clock, it's 5 o'clock. Up 5 o'clock right now. All right, let me know when we're live.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, you are live.
Fabulous, thank you. At 5 o'clock, I am calling to order the January 30th meeting of the Finance Committee. And if we could get a roll call, please.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Councillor Cassett,
Here.
Councillor Lindell, Councillor Rivera,
Here.
Councillor Villarreal,
Present.
Councillor Romero Worth.
I am here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Fantastic. Do we have changes to the agenda tonight?
No changes from staff.
All right, any changes from the committee or is there a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor, aye. Anybody opposed? That motion passes. On to approval of the consent agenda. I believe there were some items pulled. What would the committee like to talk about tonight? Councillor Lindell.
Pardon me, item F and item J.
F and J. Others?
I pulled something, but I'm still opening up, so.
Okay,
I think it was J.
okay. I can wait a sec while you get that. Councilwoman Villarreal.
Madam Chair, item J as well.
Okay. We'll wait a second for our technology to catch up with us.
Was item J the budget?
Yes, mid-year budget adjustments.
Item J.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That motion passes. All right, we are on to our presentation from our Finance Director, Emily Oster, the audit update for FY 21. Take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm happy to report that the work is continuing. We have had several meetings with Carr Riggs Ingram, which is our external auditor, and Clifton Larson Allen, which is our consultant. We are also meeting several times this week with REDW, which is a previous consultant who did some work on CARES and ARPA and other things for the city. So we've got all of the different parties talking to each other and information is being shared. That's very good. I'm feeling positive about that communication that's happening. We have shifted some focus with the consulting resources with CLA to accelerate the pace on the cash reconciliation for fiscal year 2022. I know that that has been presented to you a number of times and government cash is really key and everything else kind of flows. All roads lead to cash and all roads lead away from cash. So we're focusing some additional resources from CLA on cash in order to accelerate the progress there for fiscal year 2022. I'd also like to report to you that the audit committee did meet last week and Randy Grissom was elected the chair of the audit committee. And today is our first day live in version 2019.1 for Munis. So far, it's going very well. We don't have any major issues reported that I'm aware of, and the transition from the previous version to the new version of Munis seems to be going smoothly. With that, Madam Chair, I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Great. Questions from the committee? Okay, then we will go on to our consent agenda. The first item that was pulled was item F by Councillor Lindell. Request for approval of amendment number 1 to original contract number 22-0511 with ESA Construction to expand concrete ramp work and bathroom plumbing in the amount of $13,828.65 for a total contract amount of $297,962.67. We have our water division director, Jesse Roach, with us tonight, and Councillor Lindell, I believe you pulled this item.
I did. Thank you. Thanks for being here, Jesse. Who's the project manager on this?
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, I'm the project manager on this.
Well, why isn't it through facilities?
That's a good question, and I took over as project manager on this project from my engineering supervisor who started as project manager and then was overloaded. So I took it off his plate, but this is the first time that I've managed a project in our building.
Um, I mean, is that, you think typically how? I mean, I'm not questioning you doing it, but I thought that's what facilities was supposed to be doing, overseeing this type of project.
And I can't speak for what typically we've done in the utilities building, only that and I've been in my position 3.5 years, and this is the only project that I've been part of in that building. There have been other projects that I saw being completed related to electricity, and I'm not sure if they were, managed by public utility staff or by facilities, but in the last few weeks, I have been working more closely with facilities, and I believe the next time we take on a project like this, we'll coordinate more closely with facilities.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone up and down on these kinds of projects so much. I think it's probably a good idea. I know it's not for a lot of money, and it just seems like it's something that should have been caught by if it was engineer designed or architect designed, that this is the kind of thing that someone should have seen. The concrete ramp work, because I think that ties in with some ADA stuff, correct?
Counselor, that's correct. And this issue was caught or was pointed out by the architect. And at the time, we made the decision that the ramp that we were putting in on one side would have a curb, and that would be within code and acceptable. And we didn't know how much extra it would cost to sort of repave the entire area. Once the construction contract had been awarded and the contractor was on site, they pointed out the issue again, and we asked them for a cost to go ahead and repave the entire ramp, and that's where we got the $13,000. And within the context of the overall now nearly $300,000 project cost, we reviewed it again, and staff came to a different decision that we would go ahead and pay the extra work to prevent that additional curb from being there.
Okay. That's all I have. I just think that probably we should try to figure out if these are projects that should be done by facilities, or so that we don't have rogue projects going on. That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any more discussion on this item? Can we get a roll call? We have a motion and a second to approve item F.
Certainly, Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, the last item that was pulled from consent is item J. It was pulled by a number of counselors. Let's see, let's get to J. Request for approval of a mid-year budget amendment. Hold on. Let's start that over. Request for approval of mid-year budget amendment resolutions utilizing FY22 prior year gross receipts tax revenue above budgeted estimates to fund a package of priorities that includes contract services to alleviate unsheltered homelessness, vehicles and equipment for park rangers, encampment cleanup, salary adjustments to improve recruitment and retention of Parks Department employees, and relocation of city offices from Rail Yard Market Station, totaling, I think that's $2,119,290. We have a variety of staff here, and Councilors Lindell, Villarreal, Rivera pulled this item. I don't know. Should I just call on one of you, or somebody itching to go first? All right. Councilwoman Villarreal, Councilor Rivera, either one of you?
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Councilwoman, you
Thank
have
you.
the floor. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Madam Chair. Let's see, let's start with. So maybe if you could, I don't know who could just give us an overview of some of the things that are being covered by this, this year, if fiscal year 22 gross receipts tax revenue, what kind of things are included, and then also kind of how we came to make a decision on what was going to be used.
Certainly, Counselor, I'm happy to do that. Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
I think that's great. Thank you.
So I did include in the packet materials for this item a summary of previously approved bars using unanticipated revenue from fiscal year 2022. So I think that's an important point that I want to make as we're getting started on this item is that these bars started being approved during fiscal year 2022. And then they've continued because we've had additional unanticipated revenue associated with the fiscal year that ended in June. So this is for the closed fiscal year that ended in June, not the current fiscal year. And it started during the fiscal year in 2022, though, which I think is possibly causing some confusion. So I wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
that.
thanks for bringing that up. I think what was confusing to me for that chart was super helpful. Thank you for all the details. I think what I was confused about, it said it was coming from fiscal year 22 unanticipated revenue. And then, so that covered the 2021. And then we started going into what I think is fiscal year 23, because it was at the end of 22. And so is that still 2021? Or sorry, 2022?
Yes, Counselor.
Can you
So
explain that? Yeah. maybe
we collected approximately 37.5 million more during fiscal year 2022 that ended in June 30th of 2022 than was budgeted. And through a variety of different bars, which are summarized in the attachment in PrimeGov, 22 million of that had been approved for different purposes as of the end of December of 2022. And then just a few weeks ago, the council approved an additional 983,000, which is also reflected on that document. So we're not utilizing unanticipated revenue from FY23. This is still the amount of gross receipts tax revenue that was actually received in fiscal year 2022 over what was budgeted.
So that unanticipated revenue gets carried over into the next fiscal year. It doesn't roll into some other kind of fund, or maybe it is its own fund.
Well, and Counselor, in effect, what happens is if that additional revenue that's been collected but not budgeted isn't appropriated by the governing body for another purpose, it would go into the reserve.
Okay. So that amount, then the 37 million, does that go into reserves right away, or does it kind of get held off for potential uses as we get into the further into the fiscal year, and in this case, into the next fiscal year?
And Counselor, so what happened with fiscal year 2022 is these bars started being approved during the fiscal year. And I have Andy Hopkins here. He has a little more history than I am. So I'll give you the overview, and then Andy can kind of explain a little bit more about what happened during fiscal year 2022 if I'm not able to answer your questions. My understanding is that revenue projections were coming in higher than expected during fiscal year 2022. And that was identified, and there was a desire to make additional allocations of funds for specific purposes. And that was presented to the governing body primarily starting in December of 2021. So that was a little less than halfway through fiscal year 2022. So revenues were coming in higher than expected, And there was a desire to put that money to work, essentially to fund key priorities that were identified by department directors. And so you'll see in the handout that a number of those bars were approved at governing body on December 8th of 2021. And then there was a second round that was done a little bit later in fiscal year 2022 in March that allocated some additional funds, again, for priorities identified by departments. Now, what we're doing now in fiscal year 2023 is different. I want to really, draw attention to that. We're not utilizing that unanticipated revenue from FY23 this time. We're still looking back to that amount that was collected in excess of what was budgeted for fiscal year 2022.
Thank you for that. It's hard to track because we're in another fiscal year, but we're still utilizing the fiscal year 22 GRT that was unanticipated. Okay. So when you get into the details, let's see. Hold on, I have notes in each of these. So if you go to there's one bar for the human services, contracted homelessness services. And it says use of fiscal year 22 gross receipts tax revenue to fund homelessness service contracts. And if maybe staff could just give us some details about that specifically. Because there's another section that was for the rangers and that was also for encampment cleanup, but maybe you could just distinguish what this one is for. This is the 600,000.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, yes, thank you. So the memo I submitted details a little bit what we're thinking with this funding. Affordable Housing has been funding the non-congregate shelter at Midtown Consuelos Place with a combination of ARPA money and CDBG funds that the agency was granted. Alexandra Ladd is here to correct any mistakes I make about her budget and what I'm saying, thank goodness. But essentially we had a conversation with them because this council approved our ARPA funds for a generalized solution to unsheltered homelessness. So with these funds, we can replace the funding that they're using via ARPA and free up ARPA, which has more flexibility, and cover the operating budget for the remainder of the year at Consuelos Place, freeing up ARPA funds in affordable housing to help us with things like our other solutions to unsheltered homelessness. We're, as you know, looking for a new location for non-congregate shelter in the city of Santa Fe. We're not sure exactly yet how the operating budget is going to look. What we'll bring before you for budget when we come in March has some ideas there, but the ARPA funds are nicely flexible. So essentially this allows us to use those for an array of unsheltered homeless solutions. Does that answer?
Yeah, it does. So we're replacing what we all approved for ARPA funds will now be replaced with this GRT amount of 600,000. And then we're planning on using ARPA for potentially safe living spaces, maybe. I don't know. I'm just.
Yes, exactly. If safe outdoor spaces become viable, that could be used for that. Director Sanchez is here. She's full of amazing ideas and things that she's exploring with our new staff person, Brittany Rodriguez, who's in the back. I'd love to say hi to her. She's going to help us with homeless service programs. Diversion programs have proven really successful with one-time money, for example, where people are able to be reconciled with their families if the families receive some financial support. There's an array of things that we're actively looking at. But yes, the Consuelos cost that you all did approve in the affordable housing budget will now be replaced by these funds. And some of it has been used. The affordable housing team was kind enough to give me the numbers. About 440,000 remains for the rest of the year should this bar go through. So that'll give us a nice amount to work with on an array of unsheltered solutions.
440,000 was the ARPA.
Correct.
Okay.
but it wasn't used yet. So
Yeah,
that's
right, right.
unused.
Got it. Okay.
Is that
Um,
all right? Does anybody need to correct me? Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. And then I'm shifting to the market station. Oh, this is so fun. It seems like moving staff, which I was like, it didn't seem like, I thought we had more staff at market station. So maybe you all can kind of separate how everyone's moving, and then also explain how Specifica that plan also kind of fits into this. So maybe just where we're going, if we have spots for everybody. I know the 2 spots in Marcy Street, and if you could say that, I guess overall I'm trying to think about money and how much we're paying to relocate, and also new rentals, or we'll be renting these spaces. And is it saving us money from where we were before in Market Station? No, okay. That's a no, I see in the audience. ahead.
Counselor, Chairperson, good evening. The actual dollar for dollar comparison, well, post move, the dollar for dollar comparison of rental income from Specifica and the rental income for the 2 properties on Marcy Street are nearly equal. The Specifica lease negotiations have kind of been continuing without a lot of input or participation from me. So that has shifted a little bit, or could have shifted a little bit. But previously, I know that was balanced. I also know that we are estimating at the moment a $600,000 cost to make the entire move, and Specifica will be paying the city $500,000 to cover our moving costs, which leaves about $100,000 uncovered, which is a liability for the city. My team is doing their best to limit costs and to try and bring it as close to $500,000 as possible. So we're trying to be balanced there as well. But we won't know for sure until we are complete with the moving process. So in terms of, well, and then I would also say we will no longer be paying. It's my understanding, again, I'm not part of the negotiations, but we should no longer be paying our share of the common area maintenance or the market station loft. And if we do remain responsible for any portion of that, it will be a much smaller portion because our premises will be confined to the lobby and 3 offices adjacent to it. So that is a net benefit to the city. There's also a fair amount of ongoing maintenance that takes place at Market Station. The ownership and division of ownership of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems there is a little complicated. So that facility sees as a benefit to us. So I see just logistically it being financially upfront, close to even, and then there being some realized savings after the fact. I'm only one part of this process, so I would defer to Mr. Rich Brown on some of the finer details, but I think I have a pretty good grasp of it.
So
ahead.
just to follow up, so some offices are still going to be utilized at Market Station, or city is completely being
We are,
vacated?
Counselor, Chairperson, we are completely vacating. I don't know how familiar you are with the Market Station condo, but if you come up the front stairs, you land in a lobby. Straight ahead is the parking window. To the left is the offices where Public Works, Community Health and Safety, everybody resides. And then on the right-hand side, there's the restrooms, the kitchen, and 3 large conference rooms. Everything on the right-hand side is not included in the lease with Specifica. And we're uncertain what the future there holds. I do know Specifica has requested a right of first refusal on all of that part of our condo as well as the boneyard, but neither Specifica nor the city currently has a plan for the use of that space.
We do have Director Brown, counselor, if you're interested.
So maybe just follow up with Specifica. In the memo, it says funding is required to begin work on the physical improvements of the planned new location. So is that building out the, what did we call it? The boneyard? No. Okay.
Yes.
No,
Monica Roybal, yeah.
Right.
So
but I'm talking about at Market Station, that other part
Yeah,
of
the
our
bone-
building, boneyard, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're
we
not
have no
utilizing that.
plans. The city has no plans for that currently, and Specifica has no plans for that currently.
And I see Director Wheeler coming this way.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Counselor. We actually store records there, quite a bit of records. Yeah, so there's a huge land use storage, record storage. There's also parking record storage there. So it is used by the city. If we are sort of preparing, as Sam said, in case a right of first refusal were to be exercised by Specifica, we're preparing to get those records handled, hopefully digitized, so we could get them out of there. But I think that's all we have plans for there, the records.
So Specifica will use all of our former office spaces. And is that a Rich Brown question?
I've actually been helping with the exhibits for the lease, and yes, you're absolutely right. They will be using all of our existing office space.
Okay. All right. I think the other piece I wanted to understand is, so Public Works and okay, so let me figure out, maybe you could explain where everyone's going. Community Health and Safety Department is going to Marcy Street. Community Development Department is Marcy Street. And then all of Public Works and the parking is going to Monica Rabal.
Correct.
Okay,
Just, yes, thank you. Just the Market Station stuff.
Public Works.
Yeah, so
Yes.
nobody from Siler, nobody from Siringo,
Got it.
nobody from Rufina, everybody outside of Market Station will stay in their current location. But Market Station staff, Public Works staff will move.
Got it. And then how much money are we needing to support the reconstruction of Monica Roybal to create office space?
So our counselor chair, our current estimates are right around $200,000 to $250,000. There are as we move down the path of executing that project. Thank you, Gina. Oh yeah, thank you. 300 for Monica, excuse me. As we move down the path and begin identifying specific offices for specific staff, layout changes a little bit here and there. So there is a little bit of flux in our plan, but that our current estimate is right around $300,000, ideally less if we are able to do it less.
So remind us, there's two buildings right there. One is Monica Roybal and the other one is
Los Ortega.
Carlos Ortega. So we're using the room, the space that was essentially more like a recreational space for youth programming.
Correct. On the right, if you park and are facing the building straight ahead, not the long rectangular building on your left.
Okay. And can you tell us how the parking customer services window will work with that space?
Yes. So I don't know how familiar you are with the building, but when you come in to the front lobby, on the right-hand side, there's a room that's full of wooden cubbies. And our intention is to take all the cubbies out of that room and actually enclose it. And where the doorway now exists to walk into the cubby space would be a customer service window. We're working out specifically where the entry doorway would be. It's either going to be from an office directly behind that space or off of the larger room, the entry door into that particular office, customer service window space will be, and directly adjacent to that are several other offices. That whole front part of Monica Roybal will be dedicated to the parking staff.
Okay, and then so there is parking in the parking lot, and that's going to be for customers, I'm assuming.
Yes, ma'am.
And where's staff going to park?
And we are
And
making,
Fleet. I read somewhere that Fleet's going to be parking there too.
no, ma'am.
Okay,
No fleet, thank goodness.
Okay.
The concrete basketball courts, we're gonna stripe and turn into employee parking. So direct right outside of the building.
Counselor, Director
Yeah.
Brown had his hand up. I don't know if you want to call on him. And I do just want to note that it is 5:30. We have two other counselors and a meeting that starts at 6.
Director Brown, did you want to add anything to the conversation?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the council. Thank you. I just had one thing to add to Director Burnett. He had said that there was a $100,000 gap in this move. There's a liability for city, but actually the $100,000 is being funded from the Economic Development Fund because this is an economic development business expansion. So we're making up that $100,000 gap. So that'll give us the $600,000 we need to fulfill this this move coming up, if approved.
Got it. Thank you. And the other question about those Marcy Street, do we pay extra? Staff will have to pay for parking in that parking garage? Is that part of the whole financial costs?
Counselor Chair, parking, a certain amount of parking is already included. Well, parking is allocated per square foot. And then there's a fee for additional parking spaces in that garage. That's nominal. And we believe all the required parking will be included in our lease and employees will not be paying for parking.
You believe or you know for
I-
sure?
I am not 100% sure, but the last time we had discussed it, the last time I was involved in the lease negotiations, all the parking was included.
Does any staff know if that's confirmed? If parking is will be included in the lease?
Madam
know.
Chair,
I can,
Counselor?
Sure.
if I could, I don't know if Mr. Lease is there, but I think there's 8 spaces per floor. But we also have parking at the convention center. So we have within a block and a half away. So,
Got it.
but there are, I think, 8 spaces per floor based upon our square footage.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor, I will go back to the most current draft of the lease and find out how many spaces are included and let you all know.
Okay.
Apologies.
Thank you. That does tend to get pretty pricey, so just want us to make sure we know what that is going to be involved. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Hey, Counselor Lindell.
Thank you, Chair. Have we signed this lease?
Counselor, Chair, no, we have not signed the lease yet. The lease is, I forget the specific Finance Committee and Public Works Committee dates, but I do know the governing body date for that lease to appear is the 8th of February. So I guess the next Finance Committee and next Public Works Committee, shooting from the hip.
Madam Chair, Counselor, if I could add a little bit, the intention is to have the governing body approve the specific lease first, because that is what requires the move. So it would be wouldn't make sense to sign up to lease new space if there was a question about the specific lease. So we're trying to make those go at exactly the same time.
This is my concern. I understand that we're moving out of Market Station. I don't understand, and it seems like most people that are moving out of Market Station are going to Monica Roybal. Is that true?
Madam Chair, Counselor Lindell, it's on your memo. It's about, there's 26 going to the Marcy and there's 32 going to the Monica Roybal. So it is a majority.
To where?
32 going to Monica Roybal and 26 going to Marcy Street leases.
And they're all housed at Market Station right now?
Correct.
My concern is that, is it necessary for us to rent space downtown? I mean, it's some of the most expensive space possible, and we have a campus with lots and lots and lots of space on it. So what is the rent at Marcy Street for both of those spaces per month?
Madam Chair and Counselor Lindell, I'll let Sam or Rich answer the specific dollar amount, but we did do an assessment of our needs. And one of the things that ends up being a benefit about this move is to bring together the community health and safety leadership team and to get them closer to City Hall. Right now, we have this terrible situation for city staff, is just, especially executives, are driving all over town to be in meetings in one place and meeting downtown and meeting here. And then you're losing a lot of productivity and it's difficult on the staff, and we're losing teamwork. So one of the goals of this move was to say, take lemons and make lemonade, and let's get closer to City Hall if we possibly could with the leadership team of community health and safety. So that, and as well, and you'll see the same thing with the community development department. So, but we did first start looking at Midtown. We thought, well, let's go with the Visual Arts Center and let's move everybody there and let's really make some lemonade. But that building has extensive remodeling requirements even to make it inhabitable. And I would have had a really long timeline of 48 months at least, and 2 years, 24 months. And so that just didn't meet the requirements. So we did look at Midtown first. There's nothing that was economical and timely and made sense with our development plan for Midtown. And then we also looked at the needs for a good functioning city government, and closer to downtown was much better. And so, and as Sam said, that the sort of net on the rent prices and the lease revenue is about zero, or it's darn close to equal. And so we get to meet our needs as an organization, as well as have sort of a equal exchange for lease expense versus revenue. But maybe Rich would like to add to that, because I don't know the exact numbers.
Well, what part of community health and safety is coming to Marcy Street? And
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, Community Services Team, the Leadership for Community Health and Safety. I think those are the two that are coming. Community Services Department, and then the leadership from Community Health and Safety.
Rich, we have Director
thank
Kira.
Director
Sorry, that's the first name that popped in my head to add to your answer.
Madam Chair, Councilor Lindell, Rich is correct. The Community Health and Safety Admin Team, which supports the entire Community Health and Safety Department now. That is my business operations manager, 2 contract administrators. I think it's 2 project administrators, specialists. I'm not going to list everybody,
Right,
but
you
it's a
don't need
good
to.
group of
How
people, myself and Julie Sanchez and her team would be at the Marcy Street location.
often do those folks, how often are they all required to be in City Hall?
Well, a couple of them are here tonight, pretty frequently for evening meetings, but that's a little different.
That's
We have
different.
frequent meetings in social initiatives. So it's, they drive a fair amount. They drive their personal vehicles. And we also have team meetings with community health and safety with the chiefs, the emergency manager, Maria Sanchez Tucker, myself, and Julie Sanchez.
Okay. What's the, I need to know, what's the rent we're paying on Marcy Street?
Counselor Chair, we are paying a kind of aggregated $28 per square foot for Marcy Street, and that includes essentially the CAM maintenance, utilities, and the like.
And what's the square footage on each space?
Let me pull that up for you quickly. Sorry. So 119 Marcy Street is 3,382 square feet, and 123 Marcy Street is 3,512 square feet.
So we're paying almost $200,000 a year
Correct.
to rent those spaces.
Correct.
And how much rent are we getting off from Market Station?
I can't speak to the, well, perhaps Director Brown can speak to that.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm looking to see where we have, I think the fair market value for the year is $226,000.
Okay, as far as this bar being all bunched together, there's parts of this bar that I want to vote for, and there's other parts that I don't want to vote for. Why does it all need to be bunched together as one vote?
Madam Chair and Councillor Lindell, I'm happy to address that question. I think efficiency is one of the answers to that. We're trying to get this money deployed so it can begin to be utilized as quickly as possible. And, we wanted to make sure that there was transparency and that this was all presented to you in a clear and concise manner. So we packaged it together, similar to the group of bars that we did earlier this month.
I personally don't care for budgeting done this way. We approve these bars and then they're reoccurring costs, and this is essentially budgeting. And it doesn't give us an overview of the budget. It doesn't give us a view of what the current budget is. I don't think that this is, I asked for this information from you today, otherwise it would not have been clear to me which is reoccurring and which isn't reoccurring, and that this is a way of budgeting, and I'm not really very comfortable with it. There's parts of this bar that I very, very much want to support. There's other parts of it that, for me, need much more explanation than I can get when we're up against the timing of a 6 o'clock deadline because we have a special called council meeting. I don't think that it's fair to this committee to do budgeting this way or to have us be on such a rush schedule. I, for one, would want to know where else we looked other than Marcy Street right downtown for, in a way, it doesn't really matter. I just don't think we should be renting downtown office space. I think it's as expensive a place in Santa Fe as you can find, and we probably could have done better. And I'm not blaming anyone for that. It's a matter of, I'm sure we want some space that's close to City Hall. Well, it's frustrating when we have so much space and none of it can be used. But
Madam Chair and Councillor Lindell, the timing is a little unfortunate because you haven't been presented with the whole specific lease and the whole recurring expenses for the Marcy lease, and that's coming soon. But the reason that this money is actually needed now is because to make our timeline match what Specifica's needs are, they really want to be us to be out of the space so they can start construction by May. And so that is the reason that we really wanted to get started so that we could have the successful small company expansion. And so that is why this is here now rather than waiting for the whole package with the Specifica lease and the Marcy lease, I believe.
I get that, but I took a tour of Specifica probably well over a year ago. So it's,
Counselor,
Yes.
Chair, just real quick, a little more background so you're aware. I probably should have included it in the memo. That's my mistake, but we assessed to a pretty high level 13 potential spaces that we could move staff to. We looked at 2 facilities at Midtown Santa Fe. We looked at some facilities on Guadalupe, the general Guadalupe area. We looked at some space on Paseo, and we did look at quite a few spaces downtown. After investigating all of those spaces, I can very, very truly say that the The costs associated with the Marcy Street space are the Marcy Street spaces really do represent some of our best options out there in terms of just physical logistics, in terms of investment that would be need to be made to bring those up to the standard required. We really do feel confident that those are some of the best spaces we were able to find. If we had an unlimited amount of time to research spaces, perhaps we could find something better, but we did really do an exhaustive search just to allay some of your concerns.
What's the term of the lease?
Counselor Chair, I actually am not totally privy to all the terms of the lease. I believe it's 5 years.
5 year, yeah.
So $1 million.
Absolutely. Counselor Chair, again, we will get you a copy of the draft lease as soon as possible, definitely before they appear at any upcoming committees or the governing body, so you can ask any questions you have or provide feedback.
This is just such a frustrating ask when they're all bunched in together. And like I said, there's some of these that I feel totally supportive of. And there's other ones that I still have many more questions on, and I'm not comfortable with them. But it's presented to us as an all or nothing proposition, and I don't think that's fair to the council. So for this moment, Chair, I'll yield the floor.
Counselor Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Continue with Midtown since everyone's up there. When we were looking at additional office space or place to move, why was the boneyard, I guess that's what you call it, not considered for the offices?
Counselor Chair, the boneyard, the issues there are timing and the cost of the build out. The boneyard is essentially a completely undeveloped space. The HVAC isn't built out. It's an unfinished space. So we would have had to gone through the process of both architectural and engineering design. There would have been a process to execute the procurement for that, the process of getting through the design work, a follow-up bid to actually do the construction, and then based on just square footage costs, a fairly significant investment in building out that space that we neither had the time available to us or the funding to make that happen.
So it is square footage that we own though, right?
Yes, sir, that is true. Correct.
All right. So several years ago, we were renting at the federal building right across the street. And we made the decision to move because they were jacking up the rent. We were tired of paying rent, moved to Market Station. We owned it. We moved everyone in there, and now we're going back to the way we used to be. That doesn't quite make sense to me. And I know over time rent will go up, especially down here, and we'll be in a similar situation, I'm afraid. As far as Monica Roy Ball Center, I know before the pandemic, I think I had gone over there and we were still housing kids there. We still had a program going on there. They had a kitchen, they were feeding kids. So what's happened since then?
Madam Chair, Councilor Rivera, the youth programs have shifted to be at the Chavez Center. It's been since, well, as you know, during the pandemic, we had to shut down all the programs. In fact, the Monica Roy Ball Center was used for a time by the Senior Services Division for staging Meals on Wheels. And then when we consolidated the Community Services, Youth and Family Services Division program with the rec after school program, we were able to consolidate all of the after school happening at the Chavez Center. So that's been really convenient. Families really like it. It's convenient to where most folks live, a little more so now than the Monica Roybal Center. There's better parking. And, you know, really importantly, the kids have access to the pool, the ice rink, and the basketball courts and all that. So it's been a really great way to offer that program. And, you know, the Monica Roybal Center is not really needed for the same programming.
Interesting. Why not the teen center, since they're getting a new building and will probably be vacating by the end of the year? Why not convert that and leave Monica Roybal Center?
You mean the Carlos Ortega Center?
Yeah.
I don't know if that building was evaluated. We have had some interest in a local behavioral health provider for youth in renting that Carlos Ortega. So that was sort of underway and looking like a good use of that center. It's probably not quite big enough, although this is not my realm of expertise, but it's a little smaller. And I think it had already been we were exploring it for that second purpose.
Okay. Monica Roybal is near and dear to my heart since I worked there as a teenager many, many years ago. Used to
Mine
ride-
too. My kids went to the program there, and it's a beautiful building, and you know, it's a really important part in the community.
And it still has a kitchen, still has a large open area. I mean, it still makes a lot of sense to me to keep it something that the kids could use. I agree with Councilwoman Lindell that there are some things in here I like, some things in here I don't, and I know we're pressed for time, and that's unfortunate. I'll ask these other questions somewhat quickly, but on the first page, the first group of paging that has the unanticipated revenue. You mentioned like December 28th that there were a whole group of things that had been passed at consent. Were they in a similar package to what we're seeing now?
Madam Chair and Councilor Rivera, at the December 8th, 2021 governing body meeting, there were a number of bars and they were separate captions. The caption descriptions are listed here in the handout.
So they were all their own separate descriptions, not like this one that has many bars in one. I mean, they're all descripted differently, but they're all in one bar, so we can't pick certain bars and not pick certain bars to approve.
Madam Chair and Councilor, most of the bars from December 8th of 2021 were approved on consent. There were 2 that were removed for discussion, and the remainder were approved on consent.
You said they were their own description though, where this one tonight has multiple bars on one description.
That's correct, Councilor Rivera, and Madam Chair, that is correct. They were separate captions in December of 2021.
So why didn't we do that tonight?
Well, Madam Chair and Councilor Rivera, as I mentioned, it was really about efficiency and having this package presented to you quickly so that the funds could be utilized before the end of the fiscal year. We're just starting to get going on the process for the fiscal year 2024 budget. And so we need to get these things finalized if we're going to do them now in FY23 so that we have our base to build FY24 on. And Madam Chair, we felt that a lot of these things relate to one another in terms of alleviation of homelessness. A lot of the items that are included in this package of bars relate to city efforts to alleviate unsheltered homelessness.
All right, Mr. Burnett, does the owner of the Marcy Street building have any responsibility to help with changes that need to be made so that our staff can fit in there appropriately?
Councilor Chair, yes, they are providing some improvements. The space is relatively turnkey for us. So other than updating carpet and paint, the spaces are essentially move-in ready. say for some of the investments that we're making is we're responsible for IT improvements and stuff, but things related directly to the space itself, they're helping with, but it is minimal.
All right, I think my next question is for Ms. McDonald. You're running the park ranger program?
Madam Chair, Counselor, that's correct.
And how's it going so far?
It's going really well. Thank you for asking. I have Jason Sharp here too, if you have any questions for him, but we feel like it's going really well. We haven't hired the new rangers that we came to you before, I guess at the end of December, but we're working with HR and looking forward to expanding our work for sure.
All right, thanks. My question are about the vehicles. What type of vehicles? What will they look like?
I'm going to turn that over to Jason Sharp, who's been working on those estimates.
Councilwoman, Counselor, we're looking at two F-150s.
And the reason I ask is I was going down Siler Road today and I saw a Ranger vehicle that looked exactly like a police vehicle.
Yes, sir. Currently, two of our Rangers are using repurposed police SUVs.
And is that the look that we're going for? Are we trying to look like police department?
Not really, sir. They were available. So that's why we use them.
So what color are these vehicles gonna be?
I'm trying to keep them black, but with stock, the way stock is, they might end up being white.
So we're gonna look exactly like the police department. Is that a look we really want to have, Ms. McDonald? Not that our police is bad or anything. We have a great police department, but really for our Rangers, is that really the
Madam Chair, Counselor, the colors of the vehicles we can modify and the new ones could be white. I think that the thought that Jason Sharp had was to make them consistent. They have different logos on them, and I definitely hear the concern. You know, we would need to paint the other ones white or a different color if we wanted to be consistent. So we were trying to be consistent, but we can reevaluate that for sure if that's a concern.
Do our Rangers carry weapons?
Madam Chair, Counselor, no, they do not.
And that's a concern as well, is putting them in harm's way, especially if people think that they're police officers. So, yeah, just something to think about. It just wasn't sure if that's the look you guys were going for. Or if there was some purpose in it, maybe it helps with authority figure or something like that, but it just I'm not sure that's the look I would want for our Ranger program. So those are my questions and concerns. And again, some things I like, some things I don't, and I like the fact that we're rushed through this process. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Counselor,
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I want to go back to the discussion around the move from rail yard and just make sure that I am understanding some numbers correctly. So our rent is going to be 200,000 a year, correct? Signing a 5-year lease. And then Specifica, are they signing at least a 5-year lease?
Counselor Chair, I will defer to Director Brown. I'm not sure on the details of their lease.
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, they are signing a 5-year lease with extensions, with 4 extensions, 4 optional term extensions.
Okay. And they're going to be paying 226,000 a year?
Per annum. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then our moving costs, we're looking at 600,000. And they're giving us 500,000 for moving costs. So we have $100,000 gap that's going to be covered by economic development. But if I'm doing my math correctly, over those 5 years, we will get $130,000 more in rent than we would be paying. Is that $130,000 going to reimburse the economic development fund, or will it go into the general fund?
Madam Chair, Councilor Cassett, that's a very good question. It's going to return back to the Economic Development Fund because leases and sales go to the Economic Development Fund. And keep in mind also that that the GRT from this growth is 10x what they're doing right now. So further growth, that's why we're very excited about this expansion.
Thank you for that. I think that was primarily my only question, because the way I'm seeing this is it does seem to be balancing out. Well, I guess the other piece is, you know, this, as Councilor Rivera mentioned, rising rents, you know, what happens after 5 years? Does our lease have a extension option? Can they raise the rent on us in 5 years? Or do we have another plan that we're starting to look at over the next 5 years?
Counselor.
Madam Chair, go ahead, Mr. Burnett, go for it.
Thank you, sir. Counselor Chair, we anticipate trying to develop an alternate solution to this over the next 5 years, and in the next year or two, developing an exit strategy for us that's more long-term and permanent. I'm not sure what that will be yet, but that is our intention.
Okay, so our hope is that in 5 years, we will be out of these 3 spaces.
That is our intention. Yes,
Okay.
this, we are considering this kind of an essential kind of stopgap while we, you know, make a longer term plan. But, you know, due to the timing of how the specific request came in, we needed to find an interim solution. And as far as rent escalation goes, I do believe, and I will provide this information to you, I do believe the lease allows for a maximum of a 3% increase on the rate of the rent per year over 5 years.
Okay. Okay, in the interest of time, I will go ahead and yield the floor. Thank you both.
Okay, a couple of questions. Director Oster, are bar adjustment requests easy things to bring in front of us?
Madam Chair, they're routine. We do a number of these at most meetings. So there is a significant amount of effort that goes into preparing the materials, preparing the bar itself, and preparing the memo and packet materials. So I would say they're routine, but it does require effort by staff to put these forth.
Okay, and that's always been my understanding, is that they're a significant amount of work for the staff in terms of bringing them together and getting them through. And then we have the addition this time of, you know, being kind of under the gun to get this money out where it needs to go. When the revenues, and this may be a question, I'm just blanking on your name. Andy, thank you. Mr. Hopkins, there we go. When revenues were coming in higher than expected in FY22, and it was the year 2021, part of that was because we had budgeted fairly conservatively because of the pandemic, and we didn't really know how and when things would bounce back, correct?
Madam Chair, yes, that's correct.
So that's part of why, you know, when we started seeing unanticipated revenues coming in higher than what we budgeted, we were like, oh my goodness, hallelujah. Let's get this money out to start correcting all the things we had to do when our revenues kind of took a nosedive, fell off the cliff. I'm mixing my metaphors. Sorry, I'm in a hurry. So just want to kind of point that out, that, you know, why we were in this situation. I think we need to kind of look back about the situation. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Madam Chair, I just add that the downturn in GRT that we were seeing was really based on the pandemic. There was really no way of knowing when we were going to come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was really kind of anybody's guess, even when we did come out of it, how much tourism would come back, which is really the kind of the primary driver.
And when, correct?
Exactly. You know, so much of it, I call the tourism economy a lot like the stock market. So much is based on psychology, and there's few things in the world more difficult to predict than human behavior.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and I'm not sure who this is for, but this whole deal with the lease and moving staff, I mean, I think that maybe this is for Rich. The way this started was because of the incredible opportunity we have with Pacifica, and just really they have the economic development opportunity that they present to us. And I think we haven't really had a chance to talk about that yet because that bill was just introduced last week. And we'll be hearing more about that, but that's really what started the dominoes going, right? Is that they have office space at Market Station, or Market Street, and they have become so successful. They are such an incredible company. They've quickly outgrown their space, and we are trying to help them, with incredible growth in this city. And they are a very different and interesting company. And again, we're really short on time, Rich, so maybe you can, in a nutshell, talk about that a bit.
Sure. But thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, a couple things. So biotech, bioscience is one of our priority industry clusters. So we are doing everything we can to keep our startup bioscience companies in Santa Fe and not let them go to Boston or Austin or to San Francisco. So Pacifica is a growth company that's moving out. They're right next door to us, and they've received an infusion of venture funding. And we wanted to make sure that the venture funding didn't allow them to move somewhere else. And so as they looked at their expansion, that's where we moved in and thought about Market Station. It's taken a while because we've been trying to find the perfect spot for our staff to move to. That's taken a while, and Pacifica has been very patient with us as we've looked for the best option for all of the staff to have to move out of the building. So that's where it started, and they're growing leaps and bounds, and they're now getting a little desperate to expand. And we're also trying to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row to allow that to happen.
And then at the same time, we have a competing interest in that we are spread out as a city. Our offices are spread out all over the city, and we are looking for the ability to bring more people together. And we've talked about, potentially building in the Midtown area, kind of like the county has, one building where we can bring everybody together. But these things take time, right? This is an interim solution while we consider feasibility of that, figure out funding, figure out how to do that. But, it would be nice, I think, if we were all in one building, and some of the synergies that may become possible with this move would be possible across city government. And so, but you can't do that. There's all these steps and all these dominoes that have to fall to get you to that transition, to get you through that transition to kind of the bigger objective. And I think that's part of this too, isn't it?
Madam Chair, you're correct. It's sort of like a chess play where we see a bigger goal at the end. It may take us 5 years, but in the meantime, what I'll call the business market conditions say, hey, there's an opportunity with a business to grow with jobs and more GRT. We should jump on it. And so this is an interim step for us as we go through the process and diligence of finding a new or building a new civic services center that we hope to have in the Midtown area.
Okay, thank you. We are over time. I don't know if the committee is ready to take action on this. One option we could recess to accommodate the governing body meeting that is now 10 minutes late and come back after. That would be meaning that we'd be keeping all the staff here. But that is one option for us. I don't know what the committee would like to do. Councilor Lindell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there more discussion? Councilor Cassett. Okay, seeing no discussion, can we get a roll call, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Councilor Cassett,
Yes.
Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell, Councilor Romero Worth.
No.
Motion passes.
All right. Let me go back to my agenda. All right, that is the last thing that was pulled. We do not have an executive session. We do not have discussion items, matters from staff,
No matters from staff.
matters from the committee, matters from the chair. Our next meeting, Monday, February 13th, and that's all we have tonight. We are adjourned and the special governing body meeting